You're watching PEGRI TV, Rhode Island's public access channel.
Well, folks, good afternoon and welcome to another edition of An Hour with Bob. It's a beautiful day today, but tomorrow it's not going to be, and we'll find out. Well, I should be talking like a weather person here. Why am I talking like a weather person here today? Is there a reason for that? I got Joe Fleming here today. We'll be talking politics in a little while. But before that, we got to talk the weather. I have a weather girl here. Weather girl, weather lady, weather woman, what is appropriate now? I don't know, but I'm going to find out right now. Christina Erne from Channel 10, WJAR TV. How you doing, Christina?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on.
Nice to see you.
Nice to officially meet you. Meteorologist is the most widely accepted term, I guess.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, you know what I see on one of the stations? All of a sudden, the guy's changed his designation, meteorologist and climate scientologist. Did you see that?
I haven't seen it, but it makes sense.
One of the stations, one of the guys does that now,
Okay.
the New York guy.
Oh, yeah. It makes sense. I mean, climate is such a big part of what we do nowadays, and it's hard to avoid talking about it, so I can see why some people would do that. But I'm just plain meteorologist in the morning.
But do you have to become a climate scientologist? Do you have to take more schooling, or can you just give yourself that designation?
I don't know. I feel like that's something that you would just give yourself, because I don't think there's any specific classes or degrees for that yet anyway, but I'm sure that's coming.
Where'd you go to school, by the way?
So I took a kind of different path to get to meteorology. I went to Boston University to become a reporter, because that's what I originally thought I wanted to do. So I went to BU. I'm from the Boston area originally. I'm from Concord, Mass.
Oh,
so
nice.
it was basically like staying pretty close to home.
Right.
And after becoming a reporter and moving to Maine and doing the whole reporter thing for a couple of years, I went back to school at Mississippi State University, the online program.
Oh.
It's very popular with meteorologists, especially people who are in TV who are going to go back and get their degree while they're working.
Right.
So it's a really good way of doing it. It's a very, very popular meteorologist school for that purpose. So I went back and did that for a number of years, about 3.5 years to get that done.
Right.
And just recently I got my National Weather Association seal, which you see at the bottom of the screen when the meteorologist's name comes up. So that's kind of my path. I always have loved science, and I knew I wanted to become a reporter. And it took me until I kind of got into TV and started working at a station that I realized that while I loved being a reporter and I loved going out and doing stories every day, science was really what I wanted to focus on. So
the predictions, how do you come up with that? Well, first of all, let me throw this at you.
Okay.
Why is it that the National
Meteorological Society?
No.
Okay.
The center. Where's this?
Oh, the National Weather Service.
Is in Taunton, Massachusetts.
Oh.
Why is that?
That's a great question. It was founded a long time ago. They're the ones where we get most of our radar, our Doppler radar data from.
Right.
I think the reason that it's been there for so long and it stays there rather than having another one pop up somewhere else is because it's at a really good elevation.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, you need.
Oh, is it an elevation though? Because I noticed Diane, who works here, I'm directing the show, as a matter of fact. She lives, and I noticed it on the news watching the weather one day, and I texted her. I said, "Do you realize you are 10 degrees at this particular day? It was 10 degrees cooler in Taunton than it was in Pawtucket."
It does happen. But the thing about the elevation there is it's not too high. It's not like you're in the Worcester Hills.
Right.
Because then the radar would overshoot all of the storms, and we wouldn't be able to pick up any of the storms.
Okay.
You need
But
the radar.
I thought it was a valley. That's why I thought Taunton was a valley. Why is it?
It's a little in between. It's actually a very happy medium.
Is it?
Compared to the rest of spots around Massachusetts. But it would be really nice if someday there was another radar out kind of in Western Mass to be able to pick up those storms. Because before I got the job here in Rhode Island, I was working in Albany, New York for a while.
Oh.
And it's very interesting going from there to here because our storms move typically from west to east.
Right.
So it would be nice to have a radar system out kind of in maybe like the Springfield area or something like that, because typically we see storms move from upstate New York or somewhere in that general vicinity to here. So we'd actually get a lot better data if we had a radar.
Well, you'd get it
station out there.
beforehand, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Which we do already, but the information I think would be way more accurate if we had one out there.
Except that the weather out there is, they get much more snow than we do here.
You'd think that, and
No?
typically they do. Well, in the Buffalo area, they get obviously a lot of snow.
Well,
the
that's because, and
Adirondacks.
I know that's because of the lake.
Yeah, the interesting thing
Lake
about
Ontario.
Albany. Yeah, and the interesting thing about Albany that I didn't know until I moved out there was it's in a very deep valley. It's in the Hudson River Valley.
Right.
So you think that upstate New York, it's known for a lot of snow, but particularly in that certain region from Albany up to Saratoga Springs where they do the horse races, the Hudson River Valley is like it's called kind of a shadow valley in terms of snow. On either side of the valley,
Right.
a lot of snow falls, but right in the valley where the city itself is, they can
Really?
pick up an inch when on the outside you get 6 or 7 inches.
You know, are you familiar with a town in upstate New York called Oswego?
Oh, I know Oswego. Yeah, because the
They
SUNY
get
Oswego.
serious snow in Oswego. In fact, I think it's called the snow capital of the United States.
Oh, is it really?
I think so.
It's on a plateau. I know that.
And it's also right on Lake Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
So the weather storms coming out of Canada go across Lake Ontario, and the first thing they hit is, because I've been up there.
State College. Those poor kids.
I've been up there where the snow was so deep that they use these giant snow blowers, and it blows the snow over the top of the streets, and you drive down the street and you're like in a canyon.
Oh,
The snow is so high. The only place I saw higher snow was in Lake Tahoe, Nevada.
Oh, I've never been out there. My mom's actually in Utah right now snowing.
Oh, really?
Skiing. rather.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I've never been. I love to ski, so I can't say I don't like the snow. I love the snow, and
Right.
that's why I stay here to do my forecasting, because I love forecasting for snow. But I mean, there comes a point. I think if I was at SUNY Oswego going to school and like 41 inches of snow was falling,
Right.
I would be a little.
Well, Lake Tahoe, they mark the snow in feet, not inches, because they get serious. In fact, you know what? The first time I was out there, I've been there several times. First time I was out there, I noticed that the buildings, the houses, that first of all they have a very steep pitch on the roof because the snow is heavy, and if it stays on the roof too long, it can collapse. But most of the houses have doors on the roof.
Really?
Yes, because the snow gets so high, it's above the entire, especially if it's a single-family house or building, the snow is beyond that. So they have their snowmobiles, and they pull up to the door on the roof of the house to get in the house, and go down the stairs to get in the house.
That's so crazy.
And you go to the doors to the houses, and there'll be like a cutout to walk to the door and into the house. Yeah, they get some serious snow.
I love snow, but that much.
I like it. I like
just
watching it
can't
when it
tolerate
falls. I like it when it's
Yeah.
coming down. That's the only time I like it. I don't like shoveling it. I don't like dealing with it.
I don't like driving in it. I have a really hard time driving in it. I just get very nervous. And that's the hardest thing I think about being a meteorologist, honestly. It's not even the forecasting. You have good days, you have bad days. But when it comes to storms, you have to be in. That's your time to shine.
Right.
And of course, it's when the weather is bad. And so driving can be kind of like the scary part of it, I guess. going into work early in the morning. You know, I get up so early to go to
I was
work.
going to get into that.
Yeah,
You get up at what time?
So I usually wake up around 1:30 in the morning.
Oh my God.
I know. And so, you know, I'm driving into work at, you know, around 2 o'clock, and if there's snow on the ground, road crews have only maybe taken care of one lane on the highway.
Right.
So I'm driving down the highway like knuckles the whole way.
I used to, you speak of New York, I used to drive many times. In fact, one year I did it 12 times. I drove to Rochester, New York in the dead of winter. So many times it was ridiculous. And the New York Thruway, like you made me think of it when you said one lane. They'd have one lane, only one lane open, and the snow coming down like we the people.
Yeah.
Especially some of the towns you go through. Some of the areas that, you know, they don't have a lot of snow, and all of a sudden you hit another area that's got a ton of snow.
Yeah, and with New York, they shut down the major highways a lot too in upstate New York, because the further west you go, you might just encounter feet, like you mentioned, of snow, and so they just shut down the whole thing sometimes in the big snowstorms. They say.
Right.
No travel.
And then you get up to Buffalo, and I don't know how they deal with it.
I don't know how they do that either. The cold.
I tell people all the time that people that want to complain about New England, Rhode Island, New England, about weather, I think we have the best climate in the United States.
I do too, and that's why I work here. I could choose to go to San Diego to be a forecaster. I could go
What
to
are you going to say?
Florida.
Oh, it's beautiful again today, folks.
Right, it's just not fun. Being here, the snow is fun to forecast, and in the summer, the conditions are actually really so beautiful to be by the beach and do all that fun stuff. And I think New Englanders have the best of both worlds. Wherever you live in New England, the ocean is nearby, you have lakes nearby, you have mountains nearby, you have everything that you possibly could want.
Right. And what we don't have, mudslides, earthquakes, fires.
For the most part, tornadoes. Very rare. So the majority of the bad weather we have, we can forecast a few days out. So at least we can prepare ourselves, which is what I think.
even the bad stuff isn't that bad.
Not so bad. Not as bad as it could be.
No, I mean, when we talk about the bad storm, the worst one was 1978, before you were born.
The blizzard of 78? Oh, yeah. And the biggest thing with the blizzard of 78 was just the warning systems, too.
Right.
If only the warnings were a little bit better.
Well, the time of day it happened was, I think, the worst part of that.
Yeah,
it happened during when people were in work and coming out of work. If they had let people out of work earlier, that it wouldn't have been so bad. But the people stuck on the highway, the highway was just a giant parking lot.
That's crazy. Thankfully, we don't see that much anymore because we have some better weather equipment, so we're able to kind of get on top of that, and emergency officials actually listen a lot better than they used to.
Right.
So that's
now,
good to see.
What makes your prediction or your forecast different than somebody else's forecast?
Well, that's a great question. Every meteorologist has their own spin on the weather. And for me, a big part of doing my forecast every morning is not just about the temperature, it's not just about the conditions, it's how you can prepare your day. So there are some meteorologists out there who focus heavily on the science, which I try to mention pretty often. But for me, since I work on the Sunrise Show, I know a lot of people are waking up and they just want to know, do I need my heavy jacket? Do I need a hat or gloves? Or can I throw on something lighter? Or when I step outside to take out the dog in the morning, you know, do I need to put the little jacket on the dog? You know, things like that. So the most important part of my forecast is making sure that people are prepared. The science behind it, I do all of that behind the scenes very early in the morning to make sure my forecast is accurate. I'm saying exactly what's going to be happening. I'm poring over all the models and things like that. But at the end of the day, when I get on TV, I want people to be able to clearly and concisely understand, listen, these are the main bullet points of what you should know for today. So usually when, you know, early in the morning, if a mom's making sandwiches for the kids or the dad's getting the kids ready to head out the door, they can just hear in the corner, you know, as they're doing whatever they're doing. they can just kind of pick up. They can
So
hear.
you're going to tell them to put a heavy jacket on the kid this morning, right?
Yeah, and
That
they
type
can
of
hear
thing?
it even if they're really busy, and they can just get it very quickly and easily. They can know exactly what they should be preparing
So
for.
your morning starts at 1:30? On 1
Yeah,
o'clock?
so our show starts at 4:30, so I'm up at 1:30. I live in Massachusetts,
Right.
so I have about a 30-minute drive into work. So I get in, anywhere from, it depends on the morning. If it's easy weather, sometimes I get in around 3 a.m. And so I have an hour and a half to kind of put myself together.
Right.
I do walk into work with like a bun on top of my head.
Do you really?
And
Yeah.
sometimes like my pajama pants are still on. So I take some time to make myself look TV appropriate
Yep.
and put together all of the models and forecasts and things like that. So it's a long early morning, but you do get used to it. I've always been a morning person. I love
really?
mornings,
Yeah.
always. Not
Yeah, but that's not
not
morning. That's
yeah,
that's the middle of the
not
night.
2 o'clock in the morning person, but
Yeah.
I've always been somebody who wakes up really early. I've never been able to stay up late at night, ever. Even
Really?
when I was in college, I got tired so easily going out with friends and things like that. So mornings it's always been meant to be.
Well, what do you say? What do you mean going out with friends? What time would be the late for you?
Oh,
late
geez.
evening?
When I hit midnight, or when I used to hit midnight, now at this point, if I hit 9 p.m., I'm like,
9 o'clock?
oh my gosh, yeah, I fall asleep on the couch with my cat all the time.
9 o'clock?
Yeah. In college after midnight, that would be when, college kids are
Oh, they're
just
still rolling.
kind of
yeah.
getting ready. And
Yeah,
at midnight,
yeah.
I'd be like, so when can we go back? Are we almost done here? Can we wrap it up? Nowadays, if I get my nap in during the day, I can stay out, on a Friday or Saturday night to 10 or 11 if we're lucky.
Wow.
But I get,
Wow, that's got to be tough on the significant other.
Yeah, my fiance, he's been dealing with this since I started in the industry, so he totally understands it. He works in news as well, actually.
Oh, that's different, yeah.
Yeah, so he gets it. He knows what I'm going through.
Right. Because it wouldn't work otherwise. It wouldn't work if somebody like a younger version of me that likes to be up all night. I'm up to 1, 2 o'clock in the morning every night, and I still get up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I need my sleep.
Yeah, see, I never was a sleep person. And I cannot sleep when it's late outside. I don't
Really?
care if it's a Saturday or a Sunday, I have to get up if it's late out.
That's why I've always been a morning person, is as soon as the light's up and the sun's up, I have to get up. But I've trained myself now to take a nap in the middle of the day when it's like sunny and beautiful out. In the middle of the summer, it's the hardest when I get home at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and I need to put myself down for a nap. I have to put myself down.
That's what you
for a
do with
nap.
kids, not with your babies. Not
Oh
with,
yeah,
not
I
with
have
you.
to put myself down for like 3 hours. It's a sleep.
Really?
Yeah, I really do sleep in the middle of the day.
Now, do you sleep and wake up normally, or do you have an alarm wakes you up?
It depends. Sometimes I set an alarm if I have something to do. If I have a workout class later in the evening, I'll set an alarm just so I don't sleep through it. But
Right.
some days I give myself a day or two off where I just let myself sleep as long as I can during the day. So I try to get half of my sleep during the day and half of it overnight. So I split sleep schedule, as
Wow.
people in news call it. So sometimes I set an alarm if I have to get up. I love working out. I love fitness. So I always try to get up the energy at 5:30 in the evening and get up from a long midday
From a
slumber.
3-hour sleep.
Yeah, and
Wow.
pull myself to the gym. Yeah, it's tough.
And then go back to sleep at
And
night.
then I go back to sleep. It's
God.
a joke with me and my fiance because I've always been just a tired human.
Well, I find that
so
what most women that I've dealt with have
Yeah.
been like that. They're sleepers.
I just love my sleep, and it's always a joke between us that I say I love sleeping so much that I do it twice a day.
Yeah.
Everybody else does it once a day. I love it so much, I get to do it twice.
Well, I'll be Debbie Downer here. Do you know that if you sleep 8 hours a day and you live to be 60, do you know how many years you slept?
How many?
20.
Oh man, that's
Yeah.
a lot of lost time.
Yeah, and if you live, if lived to be 60, or you were 60 years old, and you slept 12 hours a day, you slept 30 years of your life.
Jeez, that's crazy.
Think about that.
That's a lot of wasted time.
Yeah, well,
But
no,
on the other hand,
no, you
I don't know
need
if I don't know if anybody else would want to see me without a full 8 hours of
Really?
sleep.
Yeah.
I don't think I would be as productive, because I think part of my success of being able to wake up at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning is that I took a nap during the day. So I'm able to wake up early and be peppy and get on TV
Right.
nice and early because I get that nap in the middle of the day and everything. You really need it.
Now, so you worked Albany, New York.
Mm-hmm.
Where else?
So before that, my first job was in Maine, Bangor, Maine.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I was only there for about a year, though. And the funny thing is, everybody says, oh, you were in Bangor, Maine, so high up. That winter must have been crazy. I was
Bangor,
there.
Maine is on the same latitude as Montreal, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And the one winter I was there, we got the lowest amount of snow ever recorded. So I really lucked out. It was awesome. But I was a reporter up there, and I was my own camera person. I was the multimedia journalist. So
Well, there's more of that going on nowadays.
Yeah, it's more common than not nowadays.
Right. Yeah.
So I was doing that, and I loved it so much, but I got really exhausted. The thing with Maine is that the stories, it's not like being in Rhode Island where you can just drive 20 minutes down the road to get to your interview,
Right.
to get to your story. In Maine, I would sometimes have to drive 2 to 3 hours to get to a story.
Wow.
Like from Bangor, for instance, to drive to Caribou, Maine.
Right. Oh, God, yeah.
That was a 2-hour drive, so I'd have to drive 2 hours up,
And
do
2
my
hours
story,
back.
and come back 2 hours. And sometimes I would be doing, 12-hour days just because of the drive.
And because you want to get more than one story for the day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So it was tiring, but it was really fun to see Maine. I mean, I love Maine so much.
Really?
And when I was up there, I got to report on a lot of weather-related stories. There was a very small earthquake at one point, so I took it upon myself to do that as a story. I was going through my meteorology degree at the time when I was a reporter there, so I was very interested in all of the weather stories. And then after a while, my news director was very gracious, and he had me intern with our meteorologist down in
nice.
Portland.
Right.
Yeah, so once a month I would go down.
So you went to
Really-
Civilization.
Yeah, such good food,
Yeah,
let me tell
yeah.
you. Compared to Bangor, where you have like 3 restaurants,
Yeah.
it was so nice to go to Portland. And I got to intern, I got to see all the faces that I would talk on the phone with all the time, all of our producers and things like that. But yeah, that's where I really got my start, is getting that experience in Portland,
Yeah.
kind of doing it both.
So then you went to Albany.
Then I went to Albany, where I got my first full-time meteorologist
Right.
job, and I was doing everything there. I was doing weekend mornings, I was doing filling in for the weekday evening shows, weekday morning shows. They had me all over the place. The thing with Albany is that there is so much crazy weather because of that valley.
Yeah.
So whereas here in Rhode Island, the coast, a lot of systems or storms break up because of the coast, the marine influence. It actually allows for a lot of storms to just dissipate and totally break
Right.
up. In the valley, they intensify. So there were a lot of instances where we would take out our mobile storm tracker. We had a big storm tracker vehicle, and a few times a week sometimes I would be out taking that out myself and tracking down anything from hailstorms and tornadoes.
Yeah.
That actually happened pretty frequently in upstate New York.
Really?
Yeah, you'd be really surprised because of that valley. And then big snowstorms, bitter cold. I was outside reporting in minus 40-degree wind chills.
Oh, God.
I've done it all. I love it.
Wow.
I love it. It's a thrill.
I've been to Uzhkemedogorsk, Kazakhstan, and the actual temperature was 40 below zero.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, geez.
And Groundhog Day, and needless to say, no groundhogs come out of any holes that
No.
day. That day.
Today's high temperature in Calgary, by the way, in Canada,
Right.
was minus 28.
Nice weather. I don't know how they survive up there, really
I
don't.
don't know
really
either.
don't. And a lot of Americans don't know that you go to Toronto or Montreal, a lot of the stuff they do is underground.
Really? I didn't even
the
know
buildings are connected underground. You want to go to the mall and you're in one, like a hotel. You get underground and you walk underground to the mall. You walk underground to the hospital. You walk underground to
Wow.
Toronto's like that too.
That's pretty
And
cool.
I'm sure Calgary's like that. And yeah, Alberta. Yeah.
Wow. The only Canadian places I've been to, I love Canada, by the way.
Yes.
My fiance and I go there often. We got engaged in Quebec City, actually.
Nice.
We love Quebec City and we love Montreal.
Yes.
So fun to go up there. Quebec City is like a Europe.
I
that
was
you
just
don't
going to say, it's like going to France.
Yep.
Yeah,
that you
I've
just
been
don't
there
have to
several
spend
times.
the flight on.
I was walking down the street in Quebec City one day, and some couple come over, Bob, and I didn't know them, but they knew who I was, which was pretty cool.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
so cool. It's such a fun tourist spot, but when you go there, you look around and it doesn't look very touristy. There's so many European-looking people, and everybody just kind of blends in. So that's surprising.
All right, so you're on in the morning, 5 days a week?
5 days a week, every morning from 4:30 in the morning to 9 a.m., and then the noon show.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now you got to say hi to who you got. You got Mario.
We have Mario Lario. We have Allison Bologna.
Allison Bologna. She's a Pawtucket resident, by the way.
She is. Yep.
I got to get her on the show. You better tell her. She's got to come on my show.
Sure. She's right down the road.
I know. And well, I run into her every once in a while, and it comes up, and I'm coming on. I want to come on. And
Megan Mooney.
Megan Mooney's a Pawtucket girl too. Mm-hmm. I knew her father and mother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We've got a really great group in the morning. We have a lot of fun. Everybody's just cracking jokes all the time.
Oh yeah, you can see the light-heartedness of the morning show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a blast.
Oh, good. How long you been here now?
So I've only been here for about 10 months. So I'm still relatively new. And when I first started, I started in the digital meteorologist job. I was helping build up their website primarily. And then the morning meteorologist left and I slid right in. So I've been here ever since. But it's a perfect fit and I'm just so glad to be here. I mean, it's awesome. I look forward in particular to a lot of the summer events, like spring and summer, the air show coming back.
Yeah, we missed it
everything.
last year. I did 26 air shows in a row, and then they didn't have one last year.
And I'm excited because I've never seen the air show, and I've been working with a lot of our weather technology that we have, and I just recently developed for us the 3D technology.
Oh, wow.
So it looks like the graphics are popping up right next to me. So I'm looking forward to going to the air show and doing some live broadcasts from there with our graphics.
Well, you'll have fun with that. You'll definitely have fun with that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I got to meet you.
Me too. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm finally part of Rhode Island by meeting you.
Oh, thank you for that. Well, you know who says that, though? Gene Valicenti says, you haven't made it in Rhode Island until you spent an hour with Bob. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we'll be right back with a longtime friend, and we're going to talk politics with my good friend. Is that Joe over there? All right, we'll be right back. Well, welcome back to an hour with Bob, and the second hour we're going to spend, the second half hour we're going to spend with an old friend, a longtime friend, not an old friend, a longtime friend. Joe Fleming's here, the poster of Rhode Island, I'm going to call you. How's that one? Joe, how you doing?
Good.
You've been doing this a long time.
Yes, I have. An awful long time. And we go back over 50 years.
Isn't that awful?
I know it. Means we're getting old.
Yeah, well, that's why it's awful.
Yeah.
Well, back when you were a teacher,
Right.
At
Slater.
Slater Junior High
I did
School.
33 years there as a teacher and a school administrator.
Right. Yeah.
Great time.
That's unbelievable.
I had some great kids.
Yeah.
I did.
But you're still here. You're still active.
Yep.
You're still doing your
Still doing the political
Fleming and
consulting,
Associates.
right? The polling, and we've been doing this since 1984. So we've been doing it for quite a while now.
And you're hooked up at
Been with Channel 12.
Channel 12.
Yeah, I've been with Channel 12 for about 36 years. I'm the political analyst. I'm
It's
the
been
poster.
that long?
Yeah, I started with them in 1984.
Wow.
I used to joke around with Jack White that I started 2 weeks before him. and now I'm working with his son.
Son, yeah,
And
yeah.
Jack and myself grew up in the same neighborhood in Pawtucket.
Yeah.
He was on Inglewood Avenue. I was over on Young Street.
Oh, wow.
So-
Over near the hospital.
Yep.
Yes. And I'm still over on McGill, on the other side of the city.
The Venturinas have been there for years.
So last night, we
Yep.
had a couple things. We had the governor's State of the State.
Correct.
And we also had a presidential primary, a presidential debate.
Yep, the last debate before the Iowa caucus.
Before the Iowa
It was
caucus.
the seventh debate. It was a small debate. It was down to six candidates.
yeah.
Because the other candidates did not meet the threshold. The Democratic National Committee.
What was the threshold? That was my.
I think it was like you had to get donations from 225,000 individual people.
And it had to be individual. That's
Right.
why Bloomberg didn't
Correct.
qualify, right?
He's not taking donations. He's funding the campaign himself.
Right.
And I think you need to get like 5% in so many polls from a certain
Right.
date to a certain
Right.
date. And those people qualify with just six people last night. The other people did not qualify. So the debate was a little more manageable last
Right.
night. People got to speak a little bit more than in the past debates. I mean,
But
at
it
one point-
seemed like it was just between three people, really.
Well, I think this is the seventh debate, so they all really know what they want now at this point. But obviously, the front runners are Vice President Biden, Senator Warren, Senator Sanders,
Right.
and Mayor Buttigieg.
Buttigieg.
So, I mean, those are your four big people at this point. And basically, you have your top three. Buttigieg is just slightly behind them. So, I mean, that's where the focus is going. I don't think the debates at this point are really changing too many people's minds
Right,
because
right.
they've done so many of them. And again, right now it's coming down. We're about 19 days out from the first primary and caucuses, and that's when things are going to start to move very quickly. I think we're going to see the field start to shrink after the first couple of weeks of primaries and caucuses,
Right.
and it could narrow down very quickly depending on who wins these first two.
I heard a stat that in the last 50 years, every Democratic presidential candidate that won in Iowa, except two, won the Democratic
Iowa
nomination.
is a good proving ground.
Barometer.
Keep in mind, Iowa's only like 49 delegates to the convention. It's not very big. It's also a very white state. So it doesn't really represent the whole country and what's out in the whole country. But it's the first one. It builds momentum for candidates.
Yep.
You go from Iowa on
To New
February
Hampshire.
3rd to New Hampshire a week later. So it's bang, bang. And again, New Hampshire's only 30-some delegates. You need like 2,000.
Yeah, but that's a little more realistic, New Hampshire.
It is a little
right?
more
It's
realistic.
a little more of a mixed bag.
But keep in
right?
mind, you need, I think, 1,970 delegates to get the nomination. And these two states only with about 75 delegates together.
yeah.
Then after...
Yeah, but the crowd, the people, the population in New Hampshire is a little more diverse.
Yes, diverse than Iowa. After there, you go right to Nevada. And then right after Nevada, you go to South Carolina. After those four, I think the candidates are going to shrink down. But what happens is the next week is Super Tuesday. March 3rd. There's 1,565 delegates at state that day.
That's a package right
It
there.
is. And then the next 2 weeks, there's like 500 each of those weeks. So everything's front loaded this year in the primaries. So if one of the candidates wins Iowa and New Hampshire, they could really just sweep this really
Steamroll
fast.
the whole
Exactly.
thing.
People
Well, somebody was saying last night that, if they don't win Iowa, it's all over. That seemed like a little.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're going to see is I think that 3 or 4 of them will be all bunched up in Iowa. But the question is who comes out ahead in Iowa.
Right.
And then, for example, let's say Joe Biden ekes it out in Iowa. The recent polls have him up ahead.
But
in Iowa.
but if you're ahead just by a point or two, that
Again, but it's all perception, Bob.
really.
You know, a lot of it's perception. So let's say
Just because you come in first.
Right. Let's say he happens to squeak out Iowa, and then he goes and wins New Hampshire. That could start steamrolling it.
Oh
for you.
yeah, then
At the same time, Elizabeth Warren, let's say she runs 3rd or 4th in Iowa.
Right.
Well, she has to do well in New Hampshire. If she doesn't do well in New Hampshire, her campaign is going to be in trouble.
Right.
But if she wins Iowa or Sanders wins Iowa, it's going to give them a lot of momentum. So it's all momentum at this point. Right now in Nevada, Biden is holding a lead. South Carolina, Biden is holding a comfortable lead. It's the first two. We got to see what happens. And again, the polling's all over the place. Last week, one poll had Sanders up in Iowa. This week, another poll has Biden up in Iowa.
Right.
Same thing with New Hampshire. So, I mean, the polls are all over the place. And again, Iowa is a caucus. It's not, you don't just go in and vote. You got to go to a meeting. You may be there for an hour or 2 hours to caucus. And what happens is you have to be viable. Let's say I'm going there for Pete Buttigieg, and he only gets like 5% of the vote in the caucus. Well, he's not viable, so his delegates have to choose another candidate.
Right.
So you don't know what's going to happen there. So that's why the polling is very tough in a state like that. And again, it's which campaign is well organized at the grassroots level to get their people to these caucuses.
Well, he spent the most time there, has he not?
Buttigieg has spent a lot of time there. That's
Yeah,
correct.
yeah.
But I mean, Warren's also put a lot of time and effort in. So is Sanders. They're spending a lot of money in the state. We don't see it out here, but the media is very heavily out there.
Wow.
The thing that could hurt now, keep in mind,
When
Sanders,
I know what you're
Warren,
going to say. They got to go back to the Senate.
Senator Amy Klobuchar, they're going to be in the Senate. They may be tied down in Washington the next few weeks
That's
and not
right.
campaigning personally out there. You may see a lot of them flying out there at 6 o'clock at night to do a couple of events and fly back.
They said it takes 2 hours to get to the airport and get off on a plane.
Yep.
At least 2 hours.
So you may see some people doing some stuff like that, though, because they have to get stuff done. Wow. They want to be there. Iowa is a lot of face-to-face, hands-on type of thing, and that's what works. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting in the next couple of weeks. It's now getting down to crunch time.
So I guess Buttigieg and Biden would have a strong advantage.
Well, they'll be there.
After the senators have to go back to
they'll be there.
Washington.
They'll be the ones in Iowa most of the time. Again, they're not going to spend all the time in Iowa. They got to look at the other states because they got to keep projecting down the road what happens. You know, if you just put all your eggs in Iowa and do nothing down in New Hampshire and Nevada and South Carolina, you may win that, but then you're going to lose the other places. So you got to be ready for all this.
All right, now South Carolina is a lot of blacks in South Carolina.
60% of the Democratic primary voters are black in South Carolina, and that's where Biden's winning by about 15 to 20 points.
All right, and in Arizona or Nevada, I would venture to say there's a high percentage of Mexicans and Spanish people.
A lot of Hispanics. And the last polling data I saw there was Biden's up by about 6 or 7 points over Bernie Sanders. But again, that changes almost daily. And again, if I'm correct now, Nevada's a caucus also.
Oh,
So,
it is?
Yes, they're going to be caucusing early, and that's on a Saturday usually. So we'll see them on a Saturday, and then we'll see South Carolina.
And when is that caucus?
The week after New Hampshire.
Oh.
So before the end of February, you want to see those 4 states have their caucuses and primaries.
And
then March 3rd, everything goes.
Super Tuesday.
And that's where Bloomberg is spending his money for March 3rd.
Right.
You know, he spent over $100 million already.
Already.
And he's concentrating on states with Super Tuesday, California especially, you know, see if he can make his impact
New
there.
York.
Right. He has to have an impact at that point. If he does very poorly that day, his campaign's in big trouble.
Sure.
He's
And
taking
how
a
do you
chance.
think he's going to do?
It's still early. Again, if one candidate breaks out of the pack here, they may have the momentum. But right now, he's polling it nationally. He's only polling about 7%. So he has a long ways to go.
Right.
You know,
How old is he?
I don't know.
Well, we know that Biden's
He's up
what?
there.
Biden's
like
up there.
77, 78.
77,
Something like that, yeah.
And Warren's up there.
Yep. And so is Sanders.
So is Sanders up there.
Yep.
Buttigieg,
He's the young guy.
The young buck.
He's only like 38.
Right.
Yeah.
Of the group. How about that other guy? He's doing. You see his commercials all the time now on
Oh,
TV.
Tom Styler?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's funding his own campaign also pretty much. He is taking donations. That's why he's in the debates, because he took enough donations. But he's funneling a lot of his own money into the campaign. I've seen him about 5%, 6% in some national
That's
polls. Yeah, he hasn't moved that much. Excuse me. But he's up a lot higher than some other big names, you know, but he is around the 5-6% level. But we've seen a few Democrats drop out the last couple weeks. I mean, Senator Booker just dropped out this week from New Jersey.
Right.
Again, biggest problem they have right now is money. If you're not showing up in the polls, people aren't going to give you your campaign.
Sure.
And that's what's really hurt them.
Well, you know, I find annoying actually. You had how many candidates?
There was about 20, 23.
23?
Yeah.
And they were saying how diverse the field was. And now they're saying how not diverse the field is.
Well,
but whose fault? That's not anybody's fault.
In the debates, in the debates, they were very diverse until this one. And this one is because the other people did not meet the qualifications the DNC set up. These guidelines were known long before this.
Exactly.
So you knew what you had to do.
But they're still complaining about it.
Obviously, because they know if you're not in the debates, you're not looked at as a real serious candidate, and it's hard to raise money. When you're on the debate stage, it's easier to raise money if you have a good performance.
Sure.
So if you want to get better known, you got to be on that debate stage.
Speaking of performances, who do you think won the debate last night?
I don't think anyone has stood out greatly.
Right.
I think when they were talking about foreign policy, Joe Biden looked good.
Yes.
Again, he has a lot of experience in foreign policy.
Right.
So if people are concerned about that, that's going to help Biden. I think Sanders and Warren went at each other a little bit last night. Not that
Yeah.
much. They could have went a lot more.
But how about the non-handshake?
At the end, after the debate was over?
Right.
The thing that Sanders and Warren have to be careful of, if they start going after each other too much, that's going to benefit Joe Biden big time.
Absolutely.
So, they got to be careful with it. And they don't want to get too mad at each other because they're thinking that, well, if the other one drops out, I need their support. They both get dividing the progressive vote.
Right.
And one of them wants to get the other people's progressive vote. But if you get too mad at each other, they may not go that way.
Right. And I thought what she did, put my
Right.
hands back. I thought that was a little petty at the end.
It seemed to be. I mean, you don't want to make a story out of no story.
Right.
And that's what's happening. People are going to be talking about that now, not about her performance in the debate.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem.
My problem is with Bernie. I like the guy, but he talks about this health care for all and all that.
Right.
Where's he going to get the money to pay for this?
Well, that's just that he hasn't really said where all the money's coming from, and he's basically saying there'll be no private insurance. And there's a lot of people who are Democrats even who want to keep the private insurance.
Right.
And that's what Joe Biden, people
even
who
Canadians who have socialized medicine want private insurance.
Right. Some people are very happy with their private insurance, so they want to keep it. Where Biden and Buttigieg said, you can keep that, but if you can't afford the private insurance, you can go to the Medicare for all. It's giving people the choice.
Right.
So we got to see what happens
or
there.
Obamacare.
Or Obamacare. Right.
Which is what Biden wants to keep, right?
Yes. Yeah, I think a lot of them they'll all probably end up keeping some form of Obamacare, but making it like a Medicare for all. I mean, when Obamacare was passing, people said, oh, no, we don't want that. Now that they have it, it's like, oh, we don't want to lose it. The polls are showing.
Right.
People, feel it's something they want to keep.
What puts Buttigieg up there?
I think his youth, his energy, he's been able to raise money, get his message out in the States.
Is it because of he's a vet, or is it because he's gay, or what is it?
The vet stuff doesn't hurt him. I think it's been.
No, I would think it would help.
Right. He's really spent a lot of time in Iowa and New Hampshire trying to build name recognition, build an organization, a lot of paid media. Those types of things help. And again, sometimes people are looking for something different. They don't want the same old thing. We started in 2016. The Republicans didn't want the same old thing. They Donald Trump was different.
Yeah.
And they got different.
They got something different.
They sure did. And I think what Buttigieg is saying, look at all these other people are your same old thing. I'm a little different. Take a look at me. And the question, he's moved up, but now he's moved down some.
Really?
And we've seen a lot of that in the polls. I mean, he was leading in New Hampshire and Iowa. Now he's like running third. Some could even be lower, depending on what poll you're looking at.
Now, the woman from
Minnesota?
I like her.
Yeah, a lot of people like her. She hasn't moved up in the polls. Not this debate, but the debate before she did very well in. The problem is with so many candidates, it's hard to move up.
Right.
I mean, people are saying she might be a good vice presidential candidate for Senator Biden. Right. Simply, she's a female and she's from the Midwest. If Biden's the nominee, that may work out. But again, we've seen in presidential elections, you never know who the presidential candidate's going to pick. I mean, Dan Quayle, no one thought Dan Quayle.
Right.
Sarah Palin, no one thought she would pick.
That was one of the weirdest ones ever.
Right. So I mean, things can change.
Alaska?
Yeah. But people think that she may be good because she's from the Midwest. She could probably draw some Midwest votes. Remember, Trump only carried Wisconsin, Minnesota by very few votes.
Sure, 21,000 votes.
Yes, in Wisconsin. Yeah, so I mean, she may be able to influence some voters there, so she could be a good choice.
And how about the woman from
Hawaii?
Hawaii.
Well, she's fairly low in the polls. She's doing a little bit better in New Hampshire.
She's a veteran.
She's a veteran. However, she's a very conservative Democrat.
Right.
And I think that's hurting her some. Like she didn't vote for the impeachment, she voted present instead of voting for impeachment against.
Right.
So I think she's had some problems with Democrats. The question is, she's not going to do well in Iowa, but she's concentrating on New Hampshire. Her numbers are still single digit in New Hampshire, but we'll have to see if she has any, mobility there. If she can move up to like 5th place or 4th place.
Right.
But right now, she's not showing it.
Wow.
But it's still early for some of those states. People are starting to decide now. And I think one of the last polls I saw was like in Iowa, I think it was like 3 out of 5 voters said they can still change in who they're going to support.
Yes, I saw
that. Means
I saw
it's a
that.
very fluid election and people's minds can change. So you can't say anyone's a lock at this point. Not when you have 4 people polling very closely.
Well, they have romance. I mean, those. How many people in Iowa? What's the population? By
I don't know.
11 million or something?
I don't know what the population
And
is.
that's just a guess.
But a lot of it is grassroots politics, meeting in people's living rooms.
So they know everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
you could actually meet every candidate in Iowa.
A lot of people do meet every candidate. The candidates make sure they get around to all the counties in Iowa. There's quite a few of them. But a lot of the candidates try to hit all the counties and try to make personal contact where they can.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, that would be something I should have thought about and go out there for a couple of months.
And again, I think they turnout's usually around 160,000 in the Democratic caucus. So they know who those voters are. They know who's going to come out to vote. So they target those people. So
Wow.
we have to see what happens.
All right, Trump. How do you think Trump's doing?
Well, as far as the economy, I mean, if you're in the stock market or you have a 401k, you're probably doing really well right now.
Right.
And I think, if he didn't have these other problems, I think his numbers should be way ahead because the economy is going so well. But I think Donald Trump sometimes is his own worst enemy.
Oh, no, not sometimes, all the time.
By some of the things he says.
Oh,
I
my
mean,
God.
even on the campaign trail, he's talking more about the impeachment instead of the economy and what's
Right.
going well.
Right.
So, I mean, it remains to be seen. I mean, right now, depending who the Democrats nominate, could make a difference on whether he can win or lose.
I've never seen a candidate or a president talk to people the way he talks to people and about people.
Right.
I mean, call them names. I'm calling people names. I mean,
Very
that's
different for a
ridiculous.
president. But if you're a Trump supporter, you don't care. You're with Donald Trump. Like
Well,
40%, 42% of the voters,
Right.
Donald Trump could do no wrong.
I understand
Whatever he
that.
says, I'm with.
See, I'm in
But-
total disagreement with that.
Well, I understand. There's also a group of maybe 45 or 46% who says no matter what Donald Trump does, he's wrong.
Well, that's the other side of the coin. It's also not right.
Right.
Because right away, as soon as he was elected, there were people out to get him.
Right.
From
There's
day
no
one.
question about that. But see, I think Donald Trump could have changed that if he handled the presidency differently.
Exactly. If he didn't tweet, I think, and he kept away from the name calling, I think he could have been a great
I mean,
president.
the first day he was
Good
president, he was
anyway.
criticizing about the crowd, saying, "Oh no, it's the biggest crowd ever."
Oh, I know what the
And,
stupidest thing
you know,
he
I mean,
says.
you don't need to get into that. If you were presidential and did things and kept the economy going the way it is, unemployment's down to 3.5%, stock market's at 29,000, you should be a shoo-in.
Right.
But at this point, I'm not sure what's going to happen until I know who the Democratic nominee is. It's going to be hard to figure out what the race can look like. And it's going to come down to a half a dozen states. Most of the states have already decided. New York, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, they're voting for the Democrat
Right.
no matter what happens. California, Democrat. North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Utah, they're voting for the Republican.
Right.
It's, Iowa.
The coast it seems to be Democrats,
Democratic,
and
right.
the center of the country is Republican.
But
for the most
Michigan,
part.
Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Florida, Arizona, Nevada, those are the states that can go either way.
Right.
There's a half dozen or so, and whoever wins those could really have the election. And I got to see how those voters view things. Like I know in some of the Midwest states that are swing, they weren't too big on the impeachment. The polling showed they don't think the impeachment is the right thing to do.
Right.
Yet they don't give Trump high job ratings at all. So, as I said, it all depends who the Democrats nominate and what type of campaign they run.
Well, like you said, because the economy's doing so well, he'd be a cinch for re-election.
I would think, in 1992 when Bill Clinton ran against George Bush, what did he run on? The economy.
Right.
He said the economy was bad. And, what it was this famous line, it's the economy, stupid. We're talking about the economy. That's what the voters want to know.
Right.
What are you going to do?
Yeah,
And here's what I'm
in
gonna
my
do.
pocket. That's what they want to hear about. That's
Yep.
what they want to know about.
And right now, they're getting better in their pockets because the stock market's up, unemployment's low, but we have to remain, it's, again, 4 years ago at this point, did anybody think Donald Trump was going to be the nominee of the Republican Party and win the presidency?
Not a chance.
No, that's what I'm saying. In politics, things change quick. You got to wait and see what happens,
Right.
But,
He didn't play it right. Let's put it that way.
well, he played it right to get elected.
No, I mean since the election.
I think he believes he has played it right.
I know he.
And we'll find out in November if he has.
Yeah, I believe he believes that. But
Yep.
I think had he listened to some people, he could be doing a hell of a lot better right now.
Well, he's
Because of the economy.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But
I agree.
it was scary with him with Iran with that last week.
Yeah, luckily that's calmed down, it looks
'Cause
like.
that could have went
could've
real
went very bad.
It could have went real bad.
If American soldiers were killed in that bombing, it would have really changed the thing.
And what's ironic is they made it sound like initially that they just shot rockets into the desert. But now we're finding out that they actually did shoot
No,
the
we
rockets.
knew they'd shoot them into the base. The thing is, though, they knew a couple hours ahead of time, so everybody was prepared for it,
Right.
which was good. You know, it wasn't a secret they were going to do it.
Right. But they shot that plane down, man.
Right.
And they knew they were shooting that plane down.
Well, that remains to be seen.
Well, they showed two
Oh,
rockets.
yeah, but I mean, they could have thought it was an American plane coming over to bomb, whatever.
Right.
You know, there was Iranians on the plane, so I'm sure they didn't want to shoot down their own people.
Right,
I'm sure
right.
it was by mistake.
Oh,
I would think
yeah.
it was by mistake.
Yeah, you would think so, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't think they did it on purpose, no. It's just a poor judgment or a bad move by somebody. All right, state of the state.
Well, the governor gave her 6th State of the State address last night.
Right.
It was a little longer than normal. She went to almost 8 o'clock. I mean, it didn't seem that way on paper, but come to find out today, one of the teleprompters wasn't working, so it was a little bit tougher for her to give the speech because it was kind of slow, and I think we know the reason why now. But she talked about a lot of things in there. She talked a lot about new spending. Like, for example, keep the car tax coming, the car tax cut, which is going to be $114 million this year.
Less.
No, that's how much it's going to cost the state.
Oh, yeah,
$114
that's what I mean.
Right.
They're going to be
Right.
taking in that much
Right.
less.
Unemployment insurance tax cut. She wants to expand the real jobs initiatives. $30 million for education funding. She wants to renew the Promise program at CCRI. Additional investment in DCYF. Expand the earned tax credit. And the question I have with all these things is simply, where's
gonna
the money?
pay for it? Yeah,
Well,
where's the
that's
money
what we're going to
coming
find
from?
out. The budget comes out on Thursday.
Right.
We're taping this on Wednesday, so the budget will be out by the time this
But
is.
aren't we in a deficit?
The state has about a $200 million deficit to start. You're correct,
So how
Bob.
can you be talking about all these?
Well, that's what we're going to find out when the budget comes out. She says she's going to have a balanced budget.
She's got to cut a whole lot of things to make that budget balanced.
Either cut a lot of things or find a lot of revenue.
Right.
So that's what we want to. She said there's going to be no income tax increase and no massive sales tax increase. The question is, last year she tried to increase sales tax on certain items. I wonder if that's going to be back in the budget.
Right. How about gas tax?
Well, again, that's another thing. But again, the General Assembly is not big on taxes.
Right.
Especially this year. It's an election year. She's not up for re-election. They are.
They are.
They don't want to go and increase a whole bunch of taxes that will get people upset that their opponents could use it against them.
Right.
They want a budget that's going to keep things the way they are.
And she wants the marijuana,
yeah, the legalized marijuana.
legalized marijuana, and they don't want it.
The
Both
right.
the Senate
The Speaker and the
and
President.
the Speaker
are on record saying they don't think this is the year for it. The question is she going to have that in the budget tomorrow? The revenue that she would get from it. If she does, that's another problem because let's say that they don't pass it, and now let's say it was, for example, $10 million they expected. Well, that's $10 million more you're going to make up, or get $10 million more in cuts.
Yep.
So tomorrow, when the budget comes out, that's going to be key on Thursday. On where's the revenue coming from? Is she cutting some programs, or is she just basically trying to get revenue from other sources? And again, that's a big question right now. She's talked about raising the minimum wage. She didn't say what it's going to be, but that has broad support in the General Assembly, so I assume that's going to happen.
Right.
Last couple of years, they put it right into the budget instead of doing it as a separate item.
Well, what's that going to do to the small businesses?
Well, Massachusetts has a minimum wage of 12-something. Rhode Island's at $10.50. So you got to get it up there to compete with Massachusetts. We're bordering Massachusetts and Connecticut, and Connecticut's is higher. So I think basically they want to try to get it somewhat in line with other states around them. I mean, every time the minimum wage goes up, small business says it's going to kill me. But they do seem to survive.
Well, they have to cut back. That's what people are telling
Right.
me. They have to, if they get 10 employees, they knock down 2 employees.
That always could be a possibility. But again, I mean, a $10.50 minimum wage is very tough to live on.
Sure.
You know? The other thing is she's talked about gun legislation. She wants to ban like military-style assault weapons, and she has a whole package of gun reform. That's not going to go over that great with the leadership of the General Assembly. The Speaker and the Senate President both are gun people.
Right.
The Speaker has talked about some gun reform in terms of the 3D printer guns, mental health services about people with mental health problems not getting access to guns.
Right.
So I think that's where you may see the Speaker going in the General Assembly, not the military-style assault. But again, it remains to be seen on how much pressure is put on the General Assembly. The other thing she talked about was the line item veto. And,
Yes.
and the Republican response last night, they agree with it. They want the line item veto.
Why, she wants the line
She
item
wants
veto?
the line item veto. Governors would. We did a poll, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago for the Hassenfeld Institute, and I think we asked about the line item veto. I think like 66% of Rhode Islanders said they would support
Oh, in favor of it, right?
Yes. However, the
But
chances of that going through the General Assembly are
Slim
very
to
slim.
none.
The Speaker feels things are fine the way they are
Right.
now. And
Boy,
again,
they lose power.
they lose a lot of power. Exactly. You know, they would have to override whatever she vetoed. This way, you either take the whole budget or you reject the whole budget.
Right.
It gives the General Assembly more power. I've seen years where the governor submitted a budget. What comes out of the General Assembly is totally different years ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they have the power. And
Well, we all know the most powerful seat in the state of Rhode Island is the Speaker of the House,
Right.
not the governor or even the Senate president.
they hold the Speaker holds an awful lot of power. There's no question.
Exactly.
So, I mean, she talked about a lot of things last night. She talked about banning the flavored e-cigarettes. She went over a lot of things. She talked about some bonds for housing, bonds for industrial site development to help economic development. You know, she talked about $30 million more for education, money for the Promise program, money for the pre-Ks, adding doubling the size of the number of classrooms there.
Right.
But again, that's $30 million.
Where?
That's the question. Where is it coming from? And General Assembly likes to help education as much as they
Sure.
can because that helps the local tax base. But again, you got to find that money, and that's what we're going to find out when the budget's released. We got to keep looking for that and see what happens.
Yeah.
But she has a lot of work to do with the General Assembly.
Well, I know she's got to tote the money they've got from legalized gambling because they did finally make some money this year.
Yes, but not what they expected.
No.
A lot less than they
$2
expected.
million they netted? Something
Last
like $2
month, I
million?
think it was $2 million.
$2 million.
But I think one
And
projection.
that was because of the Patriots. That's what
Probably.
they said.
Is that
Yeah,
what they
that's
said?
what they said, yeah.
I know last year when the Super Bowl came, they lost money that month.
Well,
because the
because
Patriots won the Super Bowl.
Well, first of all, they've got that rinky-dink setup there at Twin River for legalized gambling. The line is out the door and down the street. They had 2 tellers, and
I have no
at
idea.
times it's crazy. I went out. I did bet. I bet on one of the games.
Yeah, I would think they're going to probably try, the General Assembly is going to try to look at these projections and try to refine them to get projections that really make sense. Like I think they were estimating $25 million for the gambling. It came in nowhere near that.
Right.
So they got to look at these things very carefully and see where the money is that they can use, or is there some stuff in the budget they can cut? That's the big thing.
Well, that legalized gambling thing scares me because especially when people can get on their phone and they can make a bet right on their phone, and it would be easy for a person to lose everything they own.
That's always a possibility.
Too easy.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have to go and wait in line to make a bet, you're not going to be, first of all, you're not going to do it as often. And you're not going to be doing it in secrecy either.
Well, you got to set up an account in order to do that online.
Right.
So you got to have money in the account, I guess.
Right.
You know, that's the way it would work, I would assume. But they've been doing it. It hasn't really gone huge at this point.
Right.
But we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting.
Oh, yeah. It'll be a good year with the General Assembly. The governor has to work with them, try to come to agreements on these issues. I mean, the Speaker and the Senate President seem united on a lot of the issues.
But
So.
not united with her.
Correct.
It's like,
Right. Like
they're
her-
on this side, and the 2 guys are over here.
Right. She wants the real job initiative that she wants to push through again this year. Last year, they did not give her everything she wanted with that. And I think what she looks at is simply, I need the real job initiative. I need the bond for industrial site development. I need the education. If I get all these things, you know, and also the housing bond she wants to have to do more affordable housing for people who have jobs right now and to stay here.
Yep.
If she gets all these things, she can see things moving forward. But the thing to keep in mind, these things aren't going to happen overnight.
Right.
This may happen 2 or 3 years down the road.
Right.
And Rhode Islanders like to see, you know,
Well,
things
she
right
wants
away.
to be able to take credit for it. That's
Well,
what she
yeah,
wants.
but the thing is, it's going to take time for these things to happen.
Yes.
And if the General Assembly passes them, we'll have to see if this happens. And again, keep in mind, we got a $200 million deficit in a great economy. What happens when the economy turns bad?
Exactly.
So this is what we got to keep in mind. It's
All
a lot
right,
of
Joe.
things.
Well, we're going to have to cut it short.
Okay.
And I'll do it again.
No
Because we got to
problem.
talk this over again when it gets a little closer to the presidential
You
primaries.
got it. No problem, Bob.
All right?
My pleasure.
Always a pleasure
It
having
is.
you here.
My pleasure.
Joe Fleming. Catch him on
WPRI.
WPRI TV. 30,
I've been with them. This is my 36th year.
36 years.
Yeah.
Wow, that's unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
It's been a good run. They've been very good to me.
Yeah.
Yep. Doing the political analysis, and it's fun.
All right.
Good
Well,
group of
thank you
people.
for having the time to stop by
My
and
pleasure.
spend part of an hour with Bob. And folks, thank you for stopping by and spending an hour with Bob. Until next time. See you.